Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Tyler from the Keep Pounding podcast. Hope you guys are having a great evening. And the Panthers have finally made cuts to get to the 53-man roster. Some surprises, we'll get into it, but I would say this year was a lot more, a little bit easier to predict than previous years. I was 90% right. I got 48 out of the 53 guys correct. A few shockers. We'll get into it, but overall, uh, uh, I feel like it was pretty predictable. Uh, I do think we're not over or we're not done making moves, but we'll get into it a little bit. But I do not think we're done. Don't think we're done at all. So let's get into it. So before we talk into specific Panther football, I want to talk about the Trey Hendrickson issue that came up. So obviously he was holding out. He's been holding out this whole off season, and they finally were able to get a deal done a week and a half before the season started. The Bengals, I'm telling you, I've said this on multiple videos. They are a trash organization when it comes to front office and ownership, in my opinion, just trash. So they made a compromise. I believe they gave him a $14 million salary increase this year. So that increases his salary for this upcoming season to 30 million. So I believe it's 30 million fully guaranteed. And this is just a temporary fix. This is something that it's getting him to get on the football field, get him to play, but no long-term solution. So next year he will be an unrestricted free agent. He is able to sign anywhere he wants to go unless they franchise tag him. I don't suspect they'll do that unless they're trying to trade him or if they're still in the process of getting a long-term deal done. But hopefully, I mean, it's good for both sides. Get this over with. Get him on the field. He deserves a pay raise. I know there's other teams that would be willing to pay this guy. I think the Panthers would. So he'll be 30 by next offseason. And 30-year-olds edge rushers, they're still really, really good. So they're about 33, 34. So I think he's definitely has another contract coming up. So we'll see. But this is just a temporary fix for the Bengals. I don't. I mean, they obviously this makes their defense a lot better. But is it really going to translate to wins? No, their defense is going to be trash this year. So Taylor Moton got a 2-year extension. It was a 2-year, $44 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. I think this is obviously smart. This shores up an offensive line for the foreseeable future. With obviously you have Robert Hunt locked up, Damian Lewis, but the Icky is coming up. And again, I think they're waiting to see and have Icky prove to them that he's a top franchise left tackle after this season. And then I think after this season, you'll see Icky contract talks begin, possibly, depending on how he plays. But that's a lot of money to tie into your line, which you should. You should invest into your offensive line and defensive line. If you're not, if your line is not good, you're not really competing in football games. So this is a no-brainer for me. There were some people that were complaining about, oh man, did you see him get obliterated against I think it was the Texans, and he didn't get obliterated. It was Robert Hunt that got rid of his guy quickly and then pushed the guy that Taylor Moton was pass blocking to. Robert Hunt pushed him into Timo. So it wasn't even like the defender obliterated him. It was a Robert Hunt obliterating both of them. So, but this is a no-brainer for me. I think that it's well deserved. He's got this year and 2 more years after this. And I think it's just a well-deserved contract. It makes sense. You're paying him $20 million a year he's a top right tackle in this league. He's super consistent. It just makes sense. So happy that he got his contract extension, and he's going to be ending his career in Carolina. I believe that's what he said during his press conference. So he's got 3 more years. So congratulations to Timo. Some injury updates. So we have Tommy Trimble that's been activated from the PUP list. He said that his surgery went really well. It was pretty much a no-brainer surgery. It was something that's going to help him for the long term. That's why they did it. He was going through, I'm assuming, rehab, and he wasn't getting over to where he wanted to be. So they did the surgery, did the healing process, and he's going to be ready for week one, Canales said. So Tommy Tremble back on the roster. He obviously made a 53-man roster. We'll get into a little bit, but I do think, and we'll talk to a little bit more specifically later on when we talk about tight ends, but I do think because you have that injury history, there could be a possibility why we add more tight ends than I thought initially. Okay, so I want to talk about this. So can there be a reunion with the Vikings? The Vikings have reached out to the Panthers and are wanting to make a trade, and I believe the rumors are a 5th or a 6th round pick for Adam Thielen, and I get it from both sides. I'm gonna give you my opinion on why each side is correct, but I want to give my overall opinion what I believe it's going to happen. So I get it from the Vikings perspective. He's an aging wide receiver. They need a wide receiver because I believe one of their wide receivers is out for 3 weeks. So they need a wide receiver. They're down a guy, and they're obviously a contending team, right? They're a Super Bowl caliber team. So we'll see if JJ McCarthy is the real deal and can he be just solid, right? The Vikings are like the 49ers. They have a solid stacked team. They just need the quarterback to play decent. So it makes sense that they want to reach out to other teams regarding veteran wide receivers. So Adam Thielen, it makes sense. He was with Minnesota before. He's familiar with the team, the organization, and he obviously this is probably most likely going to be his last year. They haven't announced that yet, but it's probably most likely going to be his last season this year. So they reached out to the Panthers and they're like, hey, we'll offer you a 5th or a 6th. Again, I can't remember exactly what it was, but those are the rumors that I read on social media. And so they reach out to the Panthers, we'll give you a 5th or a 6th. And from the Panthers' point of view, we have a really deep roster. We obviously want Adam Thielen because Adam Thielen is still a really good receiver. He's reliable. I think he's crucial for Bryce's continued development this year. But we can keep him, but we can also trade him, in my opinion. We're not desperate in this situation. And the Panthers haven't been in a situation like this in a long time, where they have the cards, they have the leverage. We don't need him. We want him. But if we're going to live without him, if we're going to get rid of him, then it needs to be worth it for us. And so the Panther, and I even mentioned this before I heard what Dan Morgan, or the rumors, what Dan Morgan requested for this trade. I was telling my friends that give me a 3rd round pick, and I thought that I still think it's unrealistic. I don't think the Vikings will do that. It wouldn't make sense for the Vikings to do that because they also will take on their salary, because I believe his base pay was $5 million or something like that, but his bonus is $4 million. So something like that. The Vikings be on the hook for a lot of money for an aging veteran for 1 year. So I get it from the Vikings perspective. It's not worth doing that trade. But also from the Panthers perspective, it's like, okay, cool. Well, we will keep him because we are in contention this year for the division title, right? We're going to be competing, I believe, in my opinion, with the Bucs and the Falcons. And we could use Adam Thielen. Yes, we have other younger wide receivers, and yes, we could trade Adam Thielen, and those younger wide receivers get more touches, more reps, and that continues their progression. Sure, but also it doesn't hurt having having a reliable veteran there as well. What if there's an injury? There's not really a drop off there. I think there's some other things as well. We'll talk a little bit as far as even if whether Adam Thielen stays or goes, some other possibilities at wide receiver, but it just doesn't make sense for the Panthers to give up Adam Thielen, even though they would be saving cap space with this trade and getting some capital. Because some people's arguments are, well, you're not going to get anything for him when after this year. I'm okay with that. We don't need a 6th round pick. We don't need a 5th round pick. I honestly think we need him more this year than we do a 6th round pick for next year. What are we going to get with that? I mean, Dan Morgan has done a good job getting later round talent, and we'll get into a little bit. They're on the team. So I'm confident that we can get good value out of that pick, but it's got to be worth it. Is a Cam Jackson type of player worth trading for Adam Thielen? Mitchell Evans, is that a player that you're willing to take on Is that those are the type of players that we're getting in the later rounds. You know, I'd rather have a Prince of Human yelling. So it needs to be it makes sense for both sides. What I ultimately think is if they do trade for Adam Thielen, it's going to add up to a third, maybe a late third round pick. So like maybe like a fourth and a sixth or something like that. But I don't ultimately think I would be shocked if we do trade for him. I would be shocked if we get an actual third round pick. Um, and I've actually heard rumors that they even offered a fourth round pick and they declined it. So I think Dan Morgan stayed steadfast. We're not desperate. They're desperate. So, and I heard Adam Schefter report that the Vikings are looking at other veteran possibilities. Do that, but I don't really believe that. I mean, I believe they're kind of doing their due diligence, obviously, but I also believe that that was leaked by the Vikings to kind of pressure the Panthers too. So, this is something that me personally, I don't want us to trade Adam Thielen unless we get a third. If we don't get a third, I do not want us to trade Adam Thielen. I don't. Okay, so let's go over the cuts. So a lot of these were, in my opinion, it was very easy to figure out who was going to get cut. There were a few surprises. So Jack Plummer, obviously, a lot of people on social media were roasting this guy, and I feel bad because it's someone's job. We all knew that he wasn't going to make the initial 53, right? Everyone knew that. Even Jack Plummer obviously knew that. It's just, is he going to make the practice squad? And a lot of people were like on social media, like really hoping that he wasn't going to make the practice squad. They really were hoping he wasn't, and won't. So I felt bad, but Jack Plummer got cut. Bryce Perkins makes sense. In my opinion, I don't think it. I think if they bring Jack Plummer back, I do think that it may be just for this year, but I think they'll look at other options next offseason because Jack Plummer, even though he kind of improved from last year, he's not it. You're looking for that eventual replacement of Andy Dalton. Jack Plummer isn't even close to that. If Jack Plummer was our backup, I would be so concerned. So they need to move on from Jack Plummer, in my opinion. They need find another guy that they can develop. I know they spent several years on Jack Plummer, but it's time to move on from him. Bryce Perkins, thank you for your service. He did better than Jack Plummer given the circumstances, but he's gone. Imani Bailey, you have K'Ron Lynch-Adams, Kobe Hudson. These were all no surprises. Jacoby George, I do think that's someone that we could probably bring on the practice squad. TJ Luther, Dominique Daphne, Stephen Lasoya, I thought possibly could be the 10th offensive lineman. I did predict they would get 9. Luke Kandras, I could see him back on the practice squad as well. JJ Weaver, Jacoby Windman. None of these were really surprises going down the list here that you guys can read. Matthew Wright wasn't a surprise for me. But a couple of notes here that I think that could possibly make the practice squad from yesterday's cuts were Jared Kingston. I think that's someone you'll see back on the practice squad. Sam Roberts had a hell of a camp. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets claimed off waivers, to be honest. But if he doesn't, that would be great to have him on our practice squad. So that way, if Cam Jackson or Gerard Crumedy gets injured, Sam Roberts isn't a bad guy to have replace one of those guys. Shamar Bartholomew, that's something where I was on the cusp. I did have him being cut, and it was because of the last 2 preseason games. I know he was going against top-tier talent, but he was the next guy in line where if J.C. Horn or Mike Jackson was injured, that's the guy that they had on the depth chart, and that was starting preseason 1 and 2. He did horribly. He gave up big touchdowns, big yardage, and he just proved that he won't be able to be a backup cornerback that you can count on. So it makes sense waiving him. I do think that they can bring him back on the practice squad. Same thing with Michael Reed. I think Ja'Tyre Carter can be back on the practice squad. Raheem Blackshear, I think, will be as well if he clears waivers. I do think he could possibly be picked up given his special teams value, and he's a pretty decent running back. He's not terrible. Like Raheem Blackshear is decent, but we're just our roster is getting stronger. So this is good seeing good players get cut, that means our roster is getting stronger. The biggest one was Hunter Renfrow. Now, today's 53 possibly cannot be tomorrow's 53. Now, I do think they're doing chess with this move. I don't know exactly what that move is. I think there's several possibilities. Obviously, I think things depend on if they trade Adam Thielen. Maybe that they know that Hunter Renfrow wants to play for Carolina only. He's a veteran, so he can't get picked off waivers. So they're going to bring him back to the practice squad at the very least. I don't think that he's not going to play this season, but I do suspect that he could sneak back on the practice squad. Shy Tuttle, a lot of people are praising this. People were like, thank you, hallelujah. And rightfully so. I mean, he was given a poor circumstance. He played nose tackle at 3-4. That's not his position. I think he's more of a 4-3 defensive end. And he got signed by Tennessee today, which I believe Tennessee's a 3-4 defense. How he was picked out of that, I have no idea. Unless they're going to use him as a defensive end, maybe there. I doubt it. But again, you got Cam Jackson, you got Crumedy. Those guys, they're cheaper, and I feel like they're just as productive, if not better. So, Boogie Bashman and Chris Barnes. Chris Barnes, this was a big shock to me. I did have him making the initial 53. He did decent during the preseason, and we're thin at inside linebacker. This move is a very, very clear indicator that we are targeting an inside linebacker, whether it's via trade or it's off waivers. It's going to happen. So with us letting go of Chris Barnes and Jacoby Windman, Chris Barnes specifically, though, we're making a move at inside linebacker. We're not done. It's going to happen. So this was something I was completely shocked about because I thought he did pretty well. I thought he did decent. And I thought at the very least, like, okay, we have a veteran that's going to provide depth and be a decent player for us. Because I thought, like, he did decent. I didn't really see anything on tape that he was a liability for. So this one shocked me, but this tells me they definitely have something in the works. This signals to me more of a trade than a waiver. So this is just something to watch out for. Again, today's 53 is not tomorrow's 53. Okay. So I already kind of went over these already, but these are the players I think will make the practice squad, and I hope will make the practice squad. Hunter Renfrow will definitely be there. Raheem Blackshear, if he cleans waivers, for sure. I think Jacoby George. I do think Matthew Wright will go back on. He was on the practice squad with us originally last year. It just makes sense just in case something happens, but we'll get into the kicker position a little bit later. Jared Kingston, I think he had a really good camp. I think he'll come back on the practice squad if he clears waivers. Sam Roberts, I do not think he'll clear waivers. I think he is a really decent talent that will be picked up off of waivers, but we'll see. If he clears, love to have him back on the practice squad. Shamar Bartholomew, again, like I thought he had a decent training camp, but the last 2 games he played himself off the initial 53. So I do think, maybe he can get back into the practice squad and try to develop a little bit better. We'll see. Michael Reed is someone I liked during training camp, and Jatir Carter. Not that I want him in the practice squad. I just think that's going to happen because of how thin we are at guard. Not so much thin, but the injuries. You have Damian Lewis that's injured. You had Chandler Savala that was injured. So it just makes sense keeping him. I do think he's better out of the other guards, but that's something where off waivers I would not be mad about. They upgraded off waivers and be able to replace him with the practice squad. But I do think that, but given what the information I know now, I do think that he will he'll make the practice squad. I do think he'll clear waivers for sure. All right. So what I thought was really interesting and really cool was every draft pick that we made this year that Dan Morgan and the front office made the initial 53 for now. And I do think that, in my opinion, I think it'll stay this way. But this is a testament to how amazing Dan Morgan is at finding talent. It's also a testament how bad we were the last couple of years. But this is something I like to see. Your draft picks, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to obviously upgrade your talent, upgrade your depth. You're giving because at the end of the day, you're trying to draft and select people that can make your initial 53 and your practice squad. Okay, you don't want to like sign 8 people and 3 make the initial, 2 make the practice squad, and the rest are just waived, right? That's just poor draft selection. So this is a testament to Dan Morgan, the scouting department. Hell of a job. I think this is amazing. This is probably one of the best drafts that I can think of that we've had in a long time. So I noticed this. Kudos to Dan Morgan. Kudos to the Carolina Panthers. This was awesome. What was also awesome, we had 3 undrafted free agents that made the initial 53 too. This is why people love Dan Morgan so much, is because we've never had a GM like this, guys. I've always wanted our GM to have a scouting background, and it's even better that he was a formal all-pro linebacker, maybe even a Hall of Fame linebacker, maybe one day. But he knows talent. His staff that he has underneath him knows how to evaluate talent, and they're good about not just finding the value, how they fit their system, and just him and Dave Canales, I think they're just growing something really special. Hope that it continues, where they're finding the talent, they're finding the individual, making it a perfect match, and then coaching and developing them. This is what you want in your front office and on your coaching staff. So you have Bam Martin Scott, inside linebacker, that's going to help the Panthers, but I think he's a huge special teams contributor. Obviously, Dave Canales talked about how important special teams is. This is someone that did really well during preseason on special teams. Corey Thornton did a hell of a job, not just during training camp, but during the games. And I've said this before, he reminded me of Josh Norman. The confidence, be able to press against the receiver and really play aggressive but smart at the same time, and play physical at the point of attack. I'm excited about his development. He makes me less nervous about that cornerback depth room. If J.C. Horn or Mike Jackson goes down, it's who's behind him I'm concerned about. And that's something that I hope the Panthers are able to pick up a player off waivers that provides a little bit more depth. But again, 2 years ago, we were the worst team in the league. We're still a work in progress, but you're starting to see not just the top tier talent, their starters improve, but the depth is improving. There's still a long way to go. We saw how bad our depth was against the Steelers guys, right? And obviously we just waived a bunch of guys, but the depth is still a work in progress, but this is huge steps in the right direction. You have 8 draft picks that's made your initial 53, and you have 3 undrafted free agents that made your initial 53. You also have Ryan Fitzgerald. For now, we'll get into it in a little bit, but for now, he made the initial 53. So to be able to say that 8 of your draft selections and 3 undrafted free agents made your initial 53 is a testament to Dan Morgan. But to be fair, it's also a testament to how bad we've been for a while. It's showing that we are making steps in the right direction. Now, it has to translate to wins and losses, but this is a huge step in the right direction. Okay, so we're going to get into the official 53-man roster here. The check marks I have, I did a previous video of who I thought was going to make the initial 53. The X that you may see in a little bit is I was wrong about. And one of them is technically I wasn't wrong, but I was. So I marked myself anyway. I'll talk about it a little bit, but let's get into it. So obviously, it makes sense. You have Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. We knew that there was only going to be 2. There's no surprise to this. Bryce Young, Andy Dalton. But this will be most likely, very likely, that Andy Dalton, this is going to be his last year, not just with the Panthers, but in the NFL, in my opinion. You're starting to see, specifically in the preseason, not just the injuries, but how he played, he's starting to drop off. Now, it was nice to have a veteran behind Bryce Young. Super important, very vital for his development. If Bryce Young takes a step in the right direction that I think he will and hope he will, Andy Dalton is gone. But we got 2 quarterbacks, no surprise. Running backs, no surprise here as well. Obviously, you have Chuba Hubbard starting, Rico Dowdle that we picked up from the Dallas Cowboys. Great 1-2 punch here. Trevor Etienne has been an amazing surprise. I wouldn't say like I thought he was going to be bad or anything, but he has played a lot better than I anticipated him playing now. This is somebody where, again, if Chuba Hubbard is hurt or Rico Dowdle is hurt, you are, in my opinion, you are not missing a beat. Now, during the return game, did he, he looked really good. Don't get me wrong. I did think there's some things he can get better on, but from running play style, like running back plays, the dude was amazing. Not only is he fast and physical, but he makes people miss. He gets yards after contact, and that's what the Panthers are looking for, that physical play. So no surprise with the 3 running backs here. Let's get into the receivers. This is where things got interesting. So I did have them take 7. The players that I had take 7 were T-Mac, XL, Thielen, Coker, Jimmy Horn, Bryson Tremaine, and Hunter Renfrow. Obviously, Hunter Renfrow was cut, but David Moore made the initial 53-man roster for now. Now, the reason why I didn't think David Moore wasn't going to make the roster, like he's the average wide receiver. This isn't a knock on David Moore. To me, he's an average wide receiver. He's not bad. He's not great or good. He's average. And there's nothing wrong with average. He knows the system. He knows Canales. I don't have a problem with him being on the team. I just didn't think that him making the initial 53, like him being on the initial 53, gave us the best 53 on the roster. And I understand that special teams is important. Trevor Etienne did a hell of a job that made him expendable, made David Moore expendable on special teams, punt return and kick return. You had Jimmy Horn Jr. that did decent, not as good as Trevor Etienne, but that did decent for both punt return and kick return. I didn't really see David Moore do anything in the preseason, and I get why not. You got 2 rookies that are doing the job, and maybe that's why there's 2 rookies that maybe they don't fully trust 2 rookies doing this job. Maybe that's what it is. But if we're talking about wide receiver, again, in my opinion, Trevor Etienne I think is more than enough capable of doing punt return and kick return and having Jimmy Horn as a backup and then kind of battle out throughout the season who's going to start that and maybe alternate, or one doing punt return, one doing kick return. But to me, Hunter Renfrow is a better wide receiver than David Moore, and that's not debatable for me. It's not. David Moore's not running routes like Hunter Renfrow. I understand David Moore's physical. He's strong. He's obviously a lot stronger and physical than Hunter Renfrow. But wide receiver wise, Hunter Renfrow is Adam Thielen. And I understand people say Jalen Coker can play in the slot too. Don't get me wrong. But the style of play, the shiftiness, how smooth he is, because Adam Thielen isn't beating you with his speed. He's beating you with his savviness, his technique, his route running. That's what Hunter Renfrow is. So for me, and again, like if he wasn't the older Hunter Renfrow, okay, I understand that. But throughout whole training camp, I heard nothing but Dave Canal say, "Yeah, this is he's back. This is the old Hunter Renfrow." So if you're telling me the old Hunter Renfrow is back, you're telling me he's better than that David Moore's better than Hunter Renfrow? Get out of here, bro. Now, I understand this can be a chess move. He wants to play for the Panthers. He doesn't want to play anywhere else. So they could have talked to him already on the side and said, "Hey, you're going to get cut, but we're going to keep you on the practice squad. We are going to probably do some things. And then once, we get A, B, or C, then we're going to waive maybe David Moore and bring you back on." I don't know. Maybe not. But to me, this is something where some people were upset with me about my opinion about David Moore. And they're like, "Oh, well, what did Hunter Renfrow do to beat out David Moore?" I'm like, have you watched training camp? Have you paid attention? Have you watched the preseason games? It's not even close. The last preseason game David Moore played, He had a fumble, catch and fumble. I don't recall Hunter Renfrow doing that. I understand there's an injury, but from all the reports that I'm hearing, it's a minor hamstring injury, and he would have played if it was week 1. So that was a shock for me. Again, this is for now. This can change, but this is just something that shocks me initially. Tight end. So with us keeping 7, again, things can change. But I had them picking 7 and keeping 7 wide receivers. And so when I did my prediction for the initial 53-man roster, I had us picking 3 tight ends. Now, I did say that I wasn't going to be mad if they kept James Mitchell, because I think James Mitchell has done a hell of a job. And I'm not mad at all that he's made the initial 53. I think he deserves to make it. Again, is he going to stay on the initial 53? We'll see. But this is someone that if he was put on waivers, he's getting picked up, bro. He's getting picked up. He's done such a good job. He's such a all-around great tight end. But this is a very strong, young tight end room. Jatavian Sanders, obviously, we knew that he was going to make the roster. Tommy Trimble is back from injury. Hopefully he gets back to playing form. I don't think that he'll be starting full-time. I think you'll see his reps will start to increase over the weeks and see how his body responds. Mitchell Evans has done a great job as well. So really strong young tight end room. But I did have them making only keeping 3. So I was a little shocked that they kept James Mitchell, but not really completely shocked. I wasn't mad about it either. But again, they could cut him and pick someone off waivers, so it's not done yet. Offensive line. I did predict they'll pick 9, and they did, and it was the 9 that I predicted. And I feel like this was pretty common sense. I did think if they picked up and they did 10, that's where I thought it could be Jared Kingston or Losoya, one of those guys. But I did predict they would pick 9, keep 9 on the initial 53, and they did. So obviously you have Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, Icky, Timo, Austin Corbett, Chandler Zavala, Cade Mays that can play any position, Brady Christensen that can play any position, and Josh Nijman. I do think after this season, you need to look for better depth at tackle. Josh Nijman really isn't it. Even during the preseason, he didn't look good. I know that he's the only pure backup tackle that they have, but that's someone that I think they need to improve upon. Obviously, moving forward, you're going to keep the starting 5. You're going to, they have Cade Mays on a 1-year deal, Brady Christensen on a 1-year deal. They're probably going to start drafting some offensive linemen and, in the draft here coming up, but depth-wise. But that's someone I want them to improve upon. But no surprise for offensive line for me. Defensive line, no surprise at all. I did think, I thought maybe there could be a possibility of maybe they pick 7 here, or they have Shai Tuttle, unfortunately, over Jaden Crumedy. I wasn't 100% sure, but I was pretty confident they were going to move on because they would save cap space. Even the reason why I was reluctant that the Panthers would that they wouldn't cut Shai Tuttle is because they already this past offseason had him reduce his pay. So if you already ask a guy to reduce his pay, and he does, and then you cut him, and then he loses pay again, yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. But it made sense, right? He was horrible at nose tackle. No offense to Shai Tuttle, but that wasn't his position. It wasn't his position. He's a 4-3 defensive end. But Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson, Bobby Brown III, Tershawn Wharton, Cam Jackson, and Jaden Crumedy. Cam Jackson seems like he's been doing well. He's been progressing well. He's ready to play. Dave Cannell said his last press conference. So this is what I predicted: 6 defensive linemen, and these are the players that I predicted. Edge. So I had us picking 5 edge or outside linebackers, and they did 6. So DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones II, Nick Scorton, Prince Human Yellen, those were no surprises. Those were locks. Outside of that, I felt pretty confident they would keep DJ Johnson. I know that he's not a huge fan favorite, but he's a player that you can count on sealing the edge. He's not going to be someone that's going to get to the quarterback. He's someone that's he's someone that we were hoping that he would develop into a better pass rusher, but he's just what he's shown you and what he is going to be and stay, in my opinion, is just a good run stopper. That's it. And we were last in the league in run stopping last year, guys. We could use someone that's just decent at run stopping. So I get it. You want someone that can get to the quarterback, but this is someone I'm not mad about. Is it someone that we should look to upgrade in future drafts? Yes. But, and again, I think this is something that we'll continue to look at in the offseason and the draft. But I had him making the roster. I did think, again, I just thought they would pick 5. I did say if they picked 6, it would Thomas Nkoum. I just didn't pick Thomas Nkoum, but that's who made the initial 53 as well as the edge was Thomas. So congrats to him, but that's one that I did get wrong. Inside linebacker, I felt like this was pretty obvious as well. I do have something wrong here. This should be an X. This should be an X here. I don't know why I had that as a check, but Chris Barnes was someone that I guess I was that confident I knew it was a lock, but it wasn't. So you have Trevin Wallace, Christian Roseboom, Chris Barnes that got cut, so he's not on the initial 53. So Trevin Wallace, Christian Roseboom, Van Martin Scott, and Clayton Sherless. And let me check here. I think it's only 4 that they have at inside linebacker right now on the team. And that's why, again, I feel like it's 100% pretty much guaranteed that we're going to be picking up someone off waivers or trade. Yeah, we only have 4 on the 53 right now. That's going to change. So on the Panthers website, they have us picking 53. That's going to change. So, so right now we only have 4, but again, that'll change. We'll see who it is. I don't honestly have any ideas. I've heard of Chris Paul out there. Not the basketball player, but Chris Paul out there as an option. I haven't really done my research to really give an opinion on that, but if we do pick someone up, I will do my research and give my opinion on them. But we're not done with this position. Okay, so cornerback. I did have us picking 5, but the 5th I had was Michael Reed. I did predict Shamar Bartholomew was going to not make the roster, but I did have obviously J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson, Shaw Smith-Wade, Corey Thornton. I knew that he was going to make the roster just the way he played. He played so well that they forced him that he earned a roster spot. He 100% earned a roster spot. So this 4 here, obviously, I'm excited about. I need to do a little bit more research on Caleb Evans. I haven't looked too much into him during game or paid too much attention. It was more Shamar Bartholomew that I was paying attention to, and then Michael Reed caught my eye, so that's why I had Michael Reed getting the 5th cornerback position. But I was wrong on this one. And this is going back here real quick. So this is something where I do think they could also look at waivers for this. I do think like this is a possibility where they're not done trying to improve this position for depth. I really think that I think inside linebacker is number 1, cornerback number 2, and we'll get into number 3 in a little bit. Okay, so safety. I made a mistake, and I don't know how or why I did this, but I kind of forgot about Nick Scott when I was making this list. And if I remembered, I totally would have put him on. I'm like, yeah, of course Nick Scott's going to start. He's been starting. He was been with the ones the whole time. So I gave myself an X4 because I didn't put it down. But if I remembered, I would have put it down. But this is no surprise at all. Trevin Moehrig, I did have Nick Scott. What am I doing? I did have Nick Scott. I'm wrong. Man, I had a really long day today at work. I did this in between work, guys, so I apologize. But no, I was right. So take this away. Yes. Okay. So we'll get into what my percentages were last time. But okay, I was right. I had us pick 4. This is the 4 I picked. Trevin Moehrig, Nick Scott, Damani Richardson, which I do think Damani Richardson and or Lathan Ramson, I hope outplay Nick Scott. Now, I haven't heard a lot of bad things about Nick Scott, I know we all remember last year how poorly he did, and again, to at least be fair and be devil's advocate, he played on a defense that was absolutely trash, so he was in a bad position. But he's someone that I hope that Damani. I really still think Damani Richardson, even though like Damani played really well last year against on a defense that played really bad. So I still like Damani over Nick, but I'm not at training camp. I'm not evaluating these players. I'm not a scout or a GM or a head coach uh, at all. So I'm going to trust them on this. But I do think that I don't see this unless to Nick Scott continues to develop and shows me something. I think Damani Richardson or Lathan Ransom takes it over eventually this season. Kicker, this wasn't a shock for me. I feel like Ryan Fitzgerald gave himself a slight edge the last several weeks on the preseason games and during camp. Again, though, like even if again, I said this in previous videos, all things being equal, you give it to the younger guy that is less money and he's younger, and he can continue to grow. He was someone that I did like coming out of college, out of Florida State. He has a good leg. I don't know if it's a confidence issue or what it is, if he's just in his head. But this is something that I think he can get better. But I do see us moving on from him and picking someone up off waivers. I do see that happening. We'll get into a little bit who I think they'll pick up. But this is, for now, I do not think he will be the kicker week one. He could be. But I think if they had their way, he's not the kicker week one. Someone else will be. So I did have Ryan Fitzgerald making the team, initial 53. The rest are easy. Sam Martin, punter, we knew this. JJ Jansen, we knew this. So I had 48. I got 48 out of 53. The Nick Scott thing I totally messed up on, so it was 49 out of 53. So I got a 92%, 92.4%. So not bad. This year was a lot easier than previous years. But the hardest thing were some of the bubble guys. And again, special teams is super important. I just really didn't think David Moore would make the initial 53. I felt pretty confident that he wasn't. So, but not bad. But what are some future moves? What are some future moves that the Panthers could do? Now, I haven't done too much due diligence on this, to be honest. There is one player I'm going to talk about in a minute here that I think they will look at and possibly pick up if they can. I don't think that this will be their first move off waivers, but I think it could be a move off waivers. But I did think Sam Franklin Jr. was a possibility, and I was going to put that into my slides. But as I was kind of doing research, I saw that he got picked up by the Bills, which makes sense. Chris Tabor. He played for when Sam Franklin was here. Chris Tabor was our special teams coordinator. So it makes sense that he's going up there to the Buffalo, Super Bowl contending team. Makes sense. But I was hoping that he would make the Panthers a kind of a cool reunion. I feel like we could use another guy on special teams, and Sam Franklin gives you a little bit of depth at safety as well. So I thought that could have been a possibility, but he is with Buffalo. But one of the moves I think that they could make is Ben Souls. Ben Souls did a hell of a job. He's a rookie kicker, which was interesting. I get that the Steelers, and I have a friend that I work with that's a huge Steelers fan. He said their kicker's really solid, and he was confused why they even got a kicker. They signed an undrafted free agent kicker anyway, and I'm like, well, it makes sense. Competition, right? If you get someone that's solid that comes into camp and it makes you better, great. But this is someone that they were hoping to trade and get a 7th round pick for. I knew that wasn't going to happen. People don't even draft a kicker, even if he's like a top kicker. Very rarely do they get drafted in the 7th round. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. But this is someone that I think that they are looking at to get off waivers. Now, do I think it'll be the number one move that they make? Not necessarily. I don't think so. I do think, depending on what their plans are with inside linebacker, I do think that inside linebacker is priority number 1. I do think cornerback depth is priority number 2, but I do think kicker is priority 3. it's very important because we're still a growing team. Can Bryce Young and the offense continue to develop and step up? Can the defense be average? If that's the case, you're going to see a lot of close games. And a lot of close games depend on kickers. And I don't trust what I saw out of Ryan Fitzgerald to kick those clutch field goals. This guy seemed calm, cool, collected when he played against us. I believe he was 4 4 or 5 out of 5. I think it was 4 out of 4, though, for field goals. He's been really good during training camp and during the preseason. So this is someone I can see them pick up for sure. And I would love it, to be honest with you. So that's the initial 53. Those are my reactions to the moves that we made today. Let me know what you thought about the moves that we made. What did you like? What did you dislike? What do you think we're still going to do moving forward? And if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and so that way you're always able to see when I go live. I'm going to try to make more videos versus live stream. I still like live streaming, but I want to be able to grow my channel. It's still a small channel. I only have 13 subscribers, so do me a huge favor and subscribe if you have the heart to do it. It's going to help me grow, help me develop as a podcaster. But I want to be able to grow this channel so that way when I do go live, I can interact with you guys. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it.